Indy 500 is the only thing I've done in my life. The more I've done it, the more it meant to me. Most things you become more sort of used to, not bored with, that's the wrong thing, but you become almost a bit numb to them. Yeah. Even if it's jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah.
You're like, I've done it 5 times. Indy, I slept less and less every year. I focused harder, I worked harder. But that to me, especially now, and you'll get to experience it now doing the TV stuff there, the pre-race, when they sing Back Home Again in Indiana, all that stuff that we couldn't allow ourselves to enjoy as drivers.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps thinking about that. Was that to me, I love that place and I love that event. It's so special.
I believe that each and every one of us has the power within ourselves to create the life that we really want. And I want to help give you the tools to make that happen. I'm Danica Patrick, and I'm pretty intense. On the show today is the lovely Dario Franchitti. Dario was my teammate back in the IndyCar days, and you'll end up hearing about him being my favorite teammate. He's a 4-time series champion. He is a 3-time Indy 500 champion. I think I should just start interviewing all the drivers because there's such a resonance, understanding, and respect, and gets so much deeper when we can go into these conversations, which we just never took time to do when we were racing against each other. So we talked about, tons about that life after, aspects of, everything from his daughter racing to, Jimmie Johnson getting into Indy cars and, funny stories about, back in the day. So really, really great time with Dario, and really grateful for the time. I hope you have a good time listening to us reminisce. Thanks for doing this.
No worries.
Are you in Scotland? Or no, you're in London, right?
I'm in Londonshire, yeah. All the
Londonshire. What's Londonshire?
No, it's like Englandshire. It's
What's Englandshire?
It's just how we sort of refer to it sometimes. But all the
I didn't learn that slang.
It was a while ago. Come on.
I mean, it was, but I would have remembered Londonshire, Englandshire. I remember cheerio, no. And I actually kind of felt like I could learn a little Scottish, which is like a whole nother language.
Accent's going kind of quieter. It's kind of softening again.
Into like Englandshire versus Scottishshire?
Yeah, but 5 minutes with my buddies and it's back to normal.
Back to Scottishshire?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that because Ellie has such a perfect English accent?
She's a bit posh, isn't she?
She is posh. She's super posh.
Yeah. I think she went to elocution lessons at one point. But,
sorry, what?
It's where they teach you how to talk proper like me.
Like, wow.
I
to
presume.
Learn how to, like where you learn how to put your legs when you sit in a chair and where to put your silverware? Is it like a etiquette?
Were you going to say how you put your legs when you sit in a skirt? I suppose I would with a kilt.
When you wear a kilt, do you wear it the way you're supposed to wear it? As in the whole, like the situation?
You've got to. You really have to.
Does it feel good?
It depends how cold it is. I normally wear it in Scotland, so it can be a little, but it's kind of liberating. You get this walk on. You're sort of walking. I don't know how anybody wears a kilt. There's a certain walk that I don't walk like unless I'm wearing a kilt. And I think it's wearing a kilt. I don't think it's the fact that everything's hanging out.
Describe this walk then. What's the difference in this walk?
I think the fact you're maybe wearing a skirt.
So do you walk more feminine?
No, it's actually the opposite. It's more of a sort of a bit of attitude, a bit of a sway. It's like when people
counterbalance the feminine energy of the skirt.
No, honestly, you wear a kilt. When I wear a kilt, it's more the opposite. You feel quite sort of how to put it, not aggressive, but you're like, I'm in a kilt. You get all sort of very Scottish pride, and let's be honest, most of the places I wear a kilt, you're the only person in the room in a kilt, and it's kind of.
So it's more about the what is it, tartan? What is the
Tartan? Yeah.
tartan? It's more about sort of the pride of the tartan than it is about having no pants on underneath the kilt. Because I know in England, pants are underwear.
Yes. See, that's an important distinction to. I got confused with that one in America. They're going, oh yeah, blah blah, taking my pants off. I'm like, just hang on there a second. There, it was one of my teammates. I was like, no. But have you ever noticed how bad it is to walk in? Nobody looks cool walking in a racing suit because of the shoes.
You think you wish you had heels on?
No, just shoes you could actually walk in without sort of, you feel like, I don't know, I never felt comfortable.
Does it feel like slippers?
It's just that I always wore mine a size too small as well, so maybe that was the problem.
Why? Did you try your shoes on in the first place when you were cold?
No, I had to fit them in the car. You wouldn't have had this problem. I had to fit in the car. I had to wear a size smaller.
What size shoe do you wear?
Not massive. 44. 10.
13?
US 10? No. I'm a basketball player. It's like, no. But yeah. The bigger shoe, that feeling when you would go into the braking zone and you go for the brake pedal and you'd hit the top of the tub. Didn't have to happen too many times before I put smaller shoes on.
Yeah, you don't really want to screw up those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw a video, I don't remember if it's you or Ellie posted of Sophia at Silverstone looking at the lights. And
yeah.
she sounds super, by the way, she sounds super posh too. So she's 5?
She's 5.
5. And but the end of it, of course, is what I was the most interested in when she said she wanted to come back and go real fast.
Yeah, thanks.
Dad, what do you think of that?
I think in those situations, I think of you and I think of your dad. And I'm like, okay. Because she's got that energy. She's like, the whole thing, the thing I didn't film was when we drove onto the circuit and she looked over and said, Daddy, what are we doing? And it was a Christmas display. It was Christmas lights for anybody that hasn't seen it. What are you doing? I said, we're going to see the Christmas lights starting. Yeah, but Daddy, we're on the racetrack. Yeah, but with Christmas lights, it's the speed limit. Daddy, no, I want to go fast. I'm here to go fast. So I said, well, we can't. Well, that's not very good, is it? And she was having a proper kickoff. So I had to promise I was going to take her to the track next summer and take her for a spin.
What about a go-kart, Dad?
No.
Come on. Seriously, are you against it?
I don't know how I feel about it because there's a part of me thinks that who am I to say no? Right. Who am I to sort of, because I mean, your dad, my dad, your mum, my mum did exactly the opposite. They encouraged us as much as we wanted. So I don't want to say no, but I don't know.
Okay, so you know too much. So you know too much. That's the thing, right? You know how hard it is. You know all these. So what is it about that knowing that makes you think, honey, you don't? Because it would be, it almost feels like you're trying to say that it's really hard and you don't understand. You don't understand. So what is it that you understand that makes you think, because you friggin' love racing. You love cars. Like, I don't know if I know anybody that loves racing cars more than you.
You might be right. That's the thing. I love it. And I love going to Goodwood and with Ellie and the kids and Marino and Holly and Luca and just in sharing that experience. I love it. I don't know if it's just the sort of just how difficult it is and how impossible and it can be and do. I think I'm going to allow her to do what allow, that's the wrong word, because trust me, she'll do exactly what she wants to do. But encourage her to try different things. What's her passion? She shouldn't do it because it's my passion. and it was but if it becomes her passion, then I think you can't stop, you can't stop them. Ellie rode horses, so there's been some discussion of that, which could be equally painful.
Horses and horsepower doesn't get more expensive than horses and horsepower.
Exactly.
So hang on, I want to go back into the difficult thing, because obviously there's more there. So when you say difficult, like, I get it. We all get it's hard, right? We get that, it's hard to get to the top of anything, whether you're in sports or whether you're in business. I don't care, right? So now I want to know what that hard was. Like, when you say hard, what is the first thing you think of?
To me, it was, there's a couple of things came straight to mind. Those early years, that were, when didn't necessarily have the funds to go racing, and the stress that put on myself, the whole family, that kind of thing. That was not good. And then I think in my particular case, all the different injuries and that sort of the damage that did. So those are the two things. But it is odd, because I love a challenge, and I can't think of anything better than being passionate about something and challenging yourself every day. That's what I still do, but I think it's more just trying to protect Sophia, Valentina afterwards. But that's just the sort of I guess trying to find balance as a parent, which is
protect her from the pain, protect her from disappointment, from failure. Are you trying to give her a ribbon every time she goes and does something, Dad?
No, I'm
because the failures are where you learn, right? I mean, you know that.
Absolutely. And I know this, and that's with any of the guys I work with, any of the drivers, that's what I preach all the time. It's just, she's 5 and she's little and she's cute, and our little sister's 2 and she's equally cute and even smaller, and you just kind of want to protect them. And you knew me at my sort of most intense period in my life, when I was absolutely tunnel vision, and it's sort of there's maybe a different side to life that I've discovered, and it's wonderful, but it's also bloody scary.
The new side, the other side, the additional side, the side that you couldn't. Okay, tell me about that side.
Well, I never wanted. When I was driving, I didn't want kids. And Ashley and I talked about that, and we're like, nah, that was just never a plan. And I was everything took second place to what I did.
I get it. The schedule wins, the whatever, it all went. I get it.
I mean, you lived it equally as I did. Everything comes second.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's great, but it's wonderful. Trust me, I loved it. I loved every minute of what I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
This other part is sort of more about life I'm so fortunate that I've got to do life in these stages, and this sort of I find myself at 42 years old having my first kid, which is kind of cool. What's
the scary? You said scary, didn't you? You said this other part of life that it's scary. What is that?
Well, it's scary because I sort of, that intensity's kind of backed off a lot, and I want to sort of, again, protect my kids and find a balance. One of the sort of the big 3 worries, I guess, has been you want to be a great parent. You want to not mess them up. You don't want to wrap them in cotton wool, but then you don't want to push them too hard. What's the where's the balance? And funny enough, I've talked to your dad about this.
Really?
Yeah, we talked about it at Indy, because he was laughing at me. He's like, get ready. And I'm thinking, I hear you. And so we talked a little bit about that.
And?
And then, well, just the sort of let them do what they want to do, encourage them, push them if they want. If that's just, you've got to, as you say, you've got to go out and experience these things.
I guess what I would say, because, if you talk to my dad, and I'm guessing that there was a conversation around how he did it even. And, you know how your life went. Like, we've had great lives, but it wasn't without its inevitable, necessary balancing that needed to happen, and realizations that were, needing, attention in areas that were out of balance. And that's for sure been my journey, especially in the last few years. So I guess, like, dad didn't have the answer, and like, you don't have the answer, and no one has the perfect answer for their kid. Right. And every parent is probably going to give them some level of trauma, whether it's you love them too much or you don't love them enough, like, right. Just something simple like that. And that really the balance, even though you want to give it to them, you're not them. She's going to have to learn it for herself. Yeah. And part of that learning might come from a tremendous imbalance that highlights something that she needs to give attention to, but you got to let her follow her flow. So again, dad, so it's almost like step back and let her do, because she's got to figure it out for herself anyway.
Yeah. And I know all this. Trust me, I know all this. And I'm, as you say, the thing about balance in life, I know all this, but it's just putting it at this point in her life and Valentina's life is trying to put that into practice. All those things I know and all those things I understand, but it's just, it's just a little, it's a little moment, shall we say. And, I joke about it.
Is it more scary than driving in some way?
Oh, massively.
Really?
Oh, massively. You're driving, if you make a mistake, you might crash or you might, whatever.
Flip, get hurt.
But if you do this and you mess it up, it's like, that's the tricky part. That's the bit. It's like you don't want to mess it up. But luckily, Ellie's a lot more sort of on it, I would say. So we'll figure it out.
How does Ellie balance you out? Does she?
Yeah, absolutely.
She is a top bird, by the way.
She is a top bird. She is.
She's so much fun, and she's so posh at the same time. Like, who created this amazing human that's like so put together and like smart and well dressed and beautiful and articulate and speaks the Queen's English, and then on the other hand is like, who's doing shots?
Exactly. Apart from having terrible taste in men. No, she balances.
You're a top bloke. Don't worry.
Oh, thanks, DP.
Yeah.
She just that intensity that I had, and she sort of helped to chill that out a bit, and I can be quite introvert in a lot of ways, and she'll, she's the opposite, and she has got a lot of patience, which is as you know. I'm learning patience. I've definitely learned patience since I'm.
What year? So were you still racing when you met?
We met at Indy in 2013.
Okay, so it was
at the after party.
When was the accident? The accident was 2013, right?
In 2013, end of 2013, yeah. So she was there, and we kind of talked for a bit, and I was like, "Wow!"
Oh, so you met her that year?
That night, yeah. I was like, "Hey," and then she's like, "Oh, it's lovely to meet you. Maybe we'll see each other again." And off she went. I went,
"You're a top bird. You have to come back around."
Yeah, exactly. Come chat. And then
it was later that year was the accident that made you have to retire.
Yes, later that year. That was October. So we met in May. October had the accident. I eventually called her in January.
Were you with it yet?
It's a little out there.
Blame that. She's like, Dario, your head's still scrambled. No.
Yeah, she's like, you're a little odd. It's a head injury. And then we had our first date in June of the following year, and that was it.
I want to go back to, so I had this question I wanted to ask you because I get asked it all the time and I don't know how to answer it. And
and it's not very often that I get a chance to ask anyone this question that would be able to even add to this concept, this idea. And since you have a daughter that is going to become a race car driver, perhaps maybe this is something that you have put some thought to, as you said, that it reminds you of myself and my dad. But I get asked all the time, and I don't know if this is part of why you also aren't excited for her to race or not. Maybe not. But I get asked all the time what it's like to be a girl out there and what was it like for me? And it's like, dude, I can't answer that because I've only ever been a girl. Like, I don't know what any other perspective is like. So, I'm being a little bit selfish right now, but I'm just curious, what is that? What was your experience, or what was it like from your perspective to be a girl? Because you knew it from your own standpoint as well as other guys, probably. I don't know. Maybe you guys talked about me, maybe you didn't. I don't know. But
so, I remember the first time we met. It was I think it was Croft. You just come over, and literally after that, I think the next time we met was you were racing Atlantics. So it was and then you came into IndyCar, and I got the feeling, and it's getting better, but I got the feeling with most drivers got the benefit of the doubt of, let's see how good they are. Whereas I think when you came into IndyCar, there was sort of a, nah, why is they were waiting, show me what you've got. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there was a moment when I was one of those, okay, right, why are you here? What's your, and it was a qualifying for Indy, your first Indianapolis 500. You went honking down at turn 1, you turned in and the thing snapped sideways. And you caught it, jumped straight back on the throttle and did this, the other sort of 3.7 laps. And I went, all right. And that was like you to me, and I think to a lot of the other drivers, okay, you'd sort of, but that just by that one moment, you'd earned your place, I think. And then from that point, we were teammates, we raced against each other, we had some close calls. I never thought about you any differently than every other of the 20, however many, or 32 or 30 lunatics at Indianapolis. There was a situation, do you remember? There was one time I was disappointed. That was the way I think about it. You and Dan had a bit of an argument at Milwaukee.
Remember
that?
Oh yeah, I do. I was going into turn 1, and he sort of chopped down on me and put me, like, I ended up bumping, like we touched, and I went, which anybody that knows open wheel racing, you don't really want to touch wheels. I'm in the grass, going across the grass in 1 and 2. I come back on, and anyway, I was having a great race because I think I'd started like last. The car was so hard to drive and didn't qualify well. And then I'd made it up to I was passing for 5th, I feel like, on Dan in the first stint, which is about 80 laps long-ish. And so I was hauling, and he did that, and then it obviously ended up going all the way to the back again, and I think I maybe ended up finishing 5th or 8th or something like that. I came back through, but not all the way. And afterwards I was so mad at him, and so I had talked to my team, and then I saw him on pit lane. And you know how it is at the racetrack, you don't always have an opportunity to see someone after the race, like, because everybody gets done and then they leave. Yeah. And so I saw him, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go over there. And I think I even asked. It reminds me of the Milka Duno situation at Mid-Ohio. I a lot of times ask first, like, can I go talk to him? Like, I want to go tell him.
Who did you ask?
Nobody really tells me no. And so I go over there, and I put my arm around his around his shoulder or on his trap, and I'm squeezing his traps so hard, and I'm telling him what he did to me, and I'm so angry. And then, that's sort of like the moment. And I remember he kind of spoke down to me a little. He acted like I was overreacting, and maybe I was, but it was a little condescending.
Yeah, from my point, I was watching that. I remember, I think I was back at the truck already or somewhere, and I watched the replay, and I was like, that was the one time I was kind of like, you know what? I think I said to you afterwards, I said, if that had been me or Tony talking and doing that with Dan, he'd have punched us. But you put him in a position, you were giving it to him absolutely, and he couldn't react. And that was the one time I was like, you know what I mean?
So have you ever been in a situation with a driver where you were like that angry?
Oh yeah.
So then what happened?
We exchanged pleasantries.
Verbally?
Oh yeah, but we didn't.
So I'm saying, like, should I have been able to do that? Are you saying that this is like?
Well, it was you. I think if I remember, you were actually sort of giving him a bit of pushing and stuff as well.
Maybe
yeah, and I was like, well, that was the difference, because if I'd have pushed DW like that, he would have. Which we did have a moment in 2007 when we had a bit of an altercation, but yeah. So that was the only thing. But apart from that, to you, whether you were teammates or on track, it was from that moment at Indy, it was like, yeah, you're one of the drivers, one of the yeah, that was a big moment. I mean, what's that, 15 years ago?
Yeah,
15?
that was 2005.
I still remember it.
Years ago. Yeah, no, that's funny, is that I can remember that too. And I remember thinking that it was going to make more of a difference for me to have done that than qualified on the pole.
Yeah, agreed. I think qualifying the pole, people would have found a way to say, oh, it was because of X, Y, or Z.
Or whatever, yeah.
Whatever,
so,
as people do.
To me, you were always, you were really the best teammate, if I'm being honest. Like, you were my favorite teammate. You were, I feel
but you say that to all the teammates.
I do. Let me make sure I haven't said that to you before. No, it's true, because I think there was the ability to drive similar cars. I thought you and I had similar styles, and we spoke the same language about the car. So that was super helpful, but you were also helpful, and I felt like you genuinely cared, and for sure, all of your information was transparent. And if I asked the question, and even sometimes when I didn't ask the question, you wanted to help. And that's not a common trait, because again, I've been me, so I know what it's like with all the teammates I've had, and not everyone made me feel like that. In fact, not many made me feel like that. And so I want to say thank you. And I also want to know, why is that? Where did that come from? There's like the questions that go through my head are like mom, dad, upbringing, values, your own personal confidence. Cause I feel like in the end, that makes a big difference too. Like your own personal confidence, and like the sidebar of, to me, your own personal confidence is like your 1-year contracts every year. Like who does 1-year contracts every year when you could have probably done a 5-year contract, And so that sort of just spoke volumes about your confidence. But like, tell me about, what did your mom teach you? What did your dad teach you? I mean, I know your parents, but like, this is a unique, like when I talked to Kanan, when I interviewed Kanan, it was such a fun, cause like, we don't ever talk about this stuff. We don't go into these details and these backgrounds and these feelings and information and history and childhood. But now's such a fun time to do that, especially when we're old and have perspective.
I think we do have perspective, and I think in most jobs, most businesses, we don't talk about that.
No.
We just don't, because it's like, okay, are we quick? No. Why are we not quick? How do we make it faster?
It was not productive. We weren't going to make any cars go faster by saying, how did your mom raise you?
Exactly. That was the sort of, although working with the drivers now, the psychology of it and why people act certain ways is really helpful into to getting performance from different people, whether it's Scott Dixon or back with Tony again this year with Jimmie Johnson, who's my new rookie. He's quite good.
I'm curious about that. I'm curious about that. Well, let's get to that. But I want to hear about you first.
So I mean, my mum. She is, and you know my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not afraid of a strong woman. Put it that way. So
your mom's strong, and your sister's the oldest of three. So it's
my sister's oldest of three.
Marina and Marino, who's younger.
Yeah.
So
both my grandmothers, incredibly strong women. So I've never felt what's the word? I've never sort of had sort of a nervousness about it. I love strong women. Both Ashley, now Ellie, incredibly strong women. So I think that was part of the so I mean, guys occasionally say, oh, you got beaten by Danica today. I said, yeah, and I got beaten by 5 other people. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, there was never a difference. And so as teammates, I always felt if we were all better, if we could, they say a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And that was the way I always looked at it, and I still do. Whether that was the Andretti Green years, whether that was with Scott Dixon at Chip Ganassi Racing, we did that, and I still do that today in my job with those guys, and it's sort of it. And I get a buzz now out of when I can help. When I can help the other drivers, the drivers that I work with. But I remember, I think it was Mid-Ohio, you qualified on the front row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a great memory.
Yeah,
this goes to a concept I have, because you're such a nostalgic sort of like, Goodwood Festival. And like, I have this idea that people are either futurists and live in the future and get attached to outcomes, or they kind of have sort of a past orientation, which includes really good memory, because, it's that sort of like you're in the feeling of the memories and this nostalgia, the vibe, the energy. And so it's kind of no surprise to me, actually, because I actually have that written down for some ideas to ask you about. I'm like, you're so nostalgic. You're such an old soul.
I'm sitting here looking at the pictures I've got. I've got pictures around my office, and this is this is not the big silly office with all the helmets and stuff in it, but I've got pictures of my old dog, Ellie and Sophia, Valentina, and then it's all like old racing cars and old.
Yeah.
And that's so
yeah. I mean, you have a great memory. So your mom was super strong, obviously, that gave you a comfort, which is unique, because sometimes the strength can be a little out of balance and can create sort of an apprehension to being in a position where they feel like they're being dominated or controlled by a woman. So that to me says that your family has a really balanced female energy, I would say.
Yeah, it's a partnership, isn't it? It's like marriage. It's a partnership. There shouldn't be one dominant. There's always going to be different days, but it should sort of go around a center, as you said earlier, balance. I used to have this fantastic Austrian trainer, Tony, and he would, I was like sort of Humpty Dumpty. I'd break myself into a million bits, and he would sort of help put me back together. But he was very much balanced. Life is about balance, and he always used to, or he would say, balance. Life is about balance. Mm-hmm. So true.
What about George? Your dad? I feel like George is just so balanced.
Your dad's. So, when your dad at his absolute, when he's properly at the track and he was having a bad day,
Oh God, it was the worst. I mean, people thought he'd end my career because he'd get so fired up.
Right. That was my dad at the kart track. That same level of, just, wanted it so badly for his kids that he lost all reason, and as a lot of parents do. But when I started racing cars, he went the first meeting with David Leslie Jr. and Senior that I'd raced my first races with, and he said something to them like, "Okay, I've taken him as far as he can go, as far as I can. You know more than I do." And from that day, he never commented. He never got involved. And that was, he was at almost every race my whole career from that point. What was that? What would I have been? 20-some years.
He just started playing golf, basically.
He just started playing golf. And the only time he commented one day, I asked for it. I was like, that wasn't I'd screwed up somewhere. And him and I were leaving the track. And I looked over and I said, that wasn't very good today, Dad, was it? He said, no, son, you've had better days.
Wait, I'm so fascinated by this transition and how, gosh, if only your dad could have taught my dad how to do that. It's taken a lot longer for him to calm down. But did you guys ever talk about that?
Not really. I listened to your podcast with your dad. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be good." So, whatever I was doing, stop it. And I watched and I listened, and it was so much fun. And you were sort of, it made me laugh because you're trying to get your dad to have because you've become really deep since you've retired. You've become so deep, and you're trying to pull old TJ in, and he's having none of it. He's like, "Yeah, well, it's just what we did." And he was, every time you're trying to sort of,
I know.
He's like,
people love that interview too. They just I was trying so hard to get my dad to get emotional and crack and admit things and realize things and have epiphanies and break open. And he's just like, whatever. It is what it is, whatever. And I'm like,
went back to work. And I was just like, that's awesome. But that's the kind of thing my dad does. It's like, you sort of have these moments. And you're like, right, son. And you're like,
two big things I feel like for you were your flips in 2007 that obviously had created a shift in you of what you were. I don't know, maybe it was fear-based a little bit. And especially because having lost Greg Moore, which was a great friend, and Dan hadn't passed yet, but obviously those are pretty traumatic things. And then of course the trauma of NASCAR.
The trauma.
So, but in 2007, and of course the first one that happened was, I'm being the good teammate with you. And I think I'm third and I'm right behind you going down the back straightaway at Michigan. And Dan I didn't even know what this was. Then he was trying to side draft, I think he said. And I didn't even know what that was. So it was like, what the heck is side drafting? It's a NASCAR term. So, you don't side draft in an open wheel car. And so anyway, he's trying to side draft you. And anyway, you guys interlocked and you flipped right over the top of me. It was the most creepy thing because I went around 3 and 4 and I didn't see a single car. I came out of 4 and I was looking, you see that? I went for the rearview mirror up. I looked in the rearview mirror and there was nobody coming. And I'm like, oh my God. And then the one at Kentucky where it was a checkered flag. And I think you weren't sure it was the checkered flag.
Oh,
and so you kept your foot in it and you flipped, was it Kasuke Matsura? It was one of the Japanese. That's Kasuke Matsura. And you launched and flipped all, totally airborne and flipped over. So anyway, what the hell happened? What was your breakdown there?
So there was a sort of a school of thought at the time that I decided to go to NASCAR because of those flips. And that was
I would have thought that.
Yeah, that was not the case.
It was money then.
Yeah.
You like money too.
You're like, yeah, I'm Scottish. These cars will buy themselves. No,
I know Ferraris don't buy themselves.
That's right. I had to have a new challenge. That's what it was. I'd won the 500, and I was looking like I had a good chance of winning the championship. I needed a new challenge. I'd done it for 10 years. Greg had passed away. 3 years into that, and I had a massive accident at the start of 2000 where I really damaged my brain.
Was that the bike accident?
No, that was the
Motorcycle?
Homestead. Yeah, it was the Homestead testing crash. That really messed my brain up, and I took a lot out of me to get back from, and then I broke my back on the bike.
Yeah.
So I just needed a change of scenery. I needed a new challenge. I thought those crashes. It's funny did you see the Romain Grosjean crash in Formula One the other day when he went through the barrier?
Embarrassingly, no, I didn't.
Oh, he talked about it. He got stuck. He went through the barrier, like through the Armco. And he talks about it. And it resonated. I had to switch it off because it actually resonated quite a lot. There was that moment when you talk about that first flip with Dan, as the car went airborne, and I thought, oh shit. Oh, and it went quiet, and I thought, am I going to die? And it literally, there was, I think I don't want to die, and I thought if the car hits the fence, I'm probably going to die. I hope it doesn't hurt. And it was very quiet, and I opened my eyes, and there was these cars going underneath me about 20 feet below, and I thought, oh, it's not over. Close my eyes again. And the car landed, and it landed on top of Scott, and we almost bashed heads. Had we bashed heads, we'd have both been gone. We almost bashed heads, and it was no harder than falling down running. Just minimal impact. And I started laughing. I was upside down sliding along. I started laughing because I'm alive. It doesn't hurt. And then the roll bar snapped off and my head started dragging across the ground.
You're like, it's getting closer.
Exactly. And then I remembered that nobody wanted to turn the car over. And Sam Hornish came and helped the medical crew to turn the car over.
Yeah.
And Doc Trammell was as white as a sheet because they thought that, the accident had been bad. Anyway, the next day I was flying, actually to finish that with Mum and Dad. Mum and Dad were both at that race, and I saw them in the medical centre. My dad looked about 100 years old, and I just thought, I've got to stop doing this to my parents. The next day I was flying home in the helicopter, and I landed in Newcastle, Indiana. And I'd landed on the way up for fuel, and I pulled in and I landed. And the old guy comes out and he goes, "Well, son, that was a much smoother landing than you had yesterday."
I just heard the fear for your daughters ever racing right there. Because you just said, I've got to stop doing this to my parents, and you don't want your kids to do that to you.
Yeah, you could be right. I'm fine. I was fine doing it myself.
Yeah.
I hate watching other people that or my friends and people that I love. I hate watching them racing. Not because of getting hurt. That's another whole level of sort of scared, but just because I want them to do well and all those sort of things. Yeah.
So I totally thought going to NASCAR had to do with crashing and just going, you know what? Give me a roof.
Yeah. No. And I was gung ho the next week, and I went back to Kentucky, and I had to flip.
Very next week?
6 days later.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is not good.
Did you feel like you were getting a sign like, Dario, it's time for a change?
I at that point, the championship was kind of getting to the end, and I knew, and I wanted to win it, and I didn't care what signs or anything. I just went home, and I went testing the next week to Sonoma. It was very scary, actually. To get back in the car was very scary. And then we did the last race of the season. Every time I would turn into a corner, I was worried someone was there. Even when Dave, my spotter, was telling me they were clear, and that was one of those, basically lying to myself, mind over matter, just doing the job, and we ended up winning the championship.
So then why NASCAR? So you wanted a challenge.
I wanted the challenge.
And you went in blindly.
And I'd never been I'd been to one test, I think. I'd been to a test day. Never sat in a car.
Did you ever think F1?
Well, the F1 thing, I had the chance sort of 97, 2000, and it just never worked out with the IndyCar thing, and so.
Would you have rather gone to Formula One over NASCAR if that was an option?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But so the NASCAR thing, I did, as we had to go and do ARCA races, and I didn't, my first race was in Talladega in this ARCA car with the steering wheel was like a truck wheel. And I leave the pits and I hadn't got past second gear, and I just thought, I remember it clearly, what have I done?
Yeah. I've heard you say, I've seen that written. I've seen that before.
Yeah. And I never got a buzz out of it.
So it was the car then. You just hated the car. Like it does handle like shit. I mean, it's a boat.
Oh, dreadful things, but our cars were very good. And I was under, as you very well know, you're under a lot of pressure, you're under the microscope. Mm-hmm. And I started to figure out the Nationwide car a bit, or Xfinity, I think it's called now. But the Cup cars just were never very good. I broke my ankle in an accident, which was kind of
accident. You were
that one hurt. And I just didn't get a buzz, and I wanted to do it, but I was convinced I wasn't going back to IndyCar. I remember that I was not going to do IndyCar. But once I committed to NASCAR, not doing IndyCar, and then I'd gone to Detroit and I watched an IndyCar go through the first couple of corners of Detroit, and I'm like,
I do.
And the rest is history.
Do you think that because you went back to IndyCar in 2009 and just cleaned up? I mean, you had the vast majority of your big records after. So it leads me to wonder if you feel like, what did you get from that? It may have seemed like a detour. However, I'm thinking it wasn't. And I'm wondering what it is that you got from NASCAR that put you in this position in 2009 to do what you did through 2012, 13 before you had your accident.
Well, what did you say earlier? That you learn from the hard bits, really. You learn from those bits where you fall over, really, and that was it. I learned so much about myself and determination, and being out of my comfort zone, that when I got back to IndyCar, and I had something to prove too. But I'd been so far out of my comfort zone, and from working with me, I like the car a very certain way.
Dude, you like your head pad to be within a 64th of an inch is probably where you draw the line, but an 1/8 is definitely a change, and there's a 1/10 in it.
Absolutely. Everything had to be perfect. But when I came back from NASCAR, the seat still had to be perfect, but I could drive a car that I wasn't comfortable with. And then that was from doing that, and it was like, right, okay, look out, here we go. And I got teamed up with a bunch of people who were equally as hungry to win. And when that happens, it's, as you know, it's magical. It's like, whoa. And I went in there literally thinking, if I don't embarrass myself, I'll be happy. I just don't want to embarrass myself against Scott, because he was at the top of his game, and it worked out quite well. Yeah,
I'd say. And now Scott embarrasses everyone else when he just keeps winning everything. God.
He's, you know, when you decided you were going to retire.
Yeah.
Probably much like there was a time you could feel your desire to do it just tailing off.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a very subtle change, but you feel it. He doesn't get that. He's 40. He's just turned 40, and he's just keeps going.
He might as well be 30.
Exactly. I mean, his attitude is every day. He just doesn't have that sort of, doesn't the trappings of his success, whatever, hasn't slowed him down. He's still, like yesterday, I spoke to him, and he was out in the morning training, out running in the afternoon, and he's still as committed as ever to success. and it's
So,
fantastic.
and I would definitely draw the parallel in the racing world of Dixie to Jimmie. Right. They're both kind of more, I mean, let's be lovingly honest. They're both a little bit more sort of like quiet, vanilla would be usually a word to describe them. I mean,
Jimmie,
we know
right?
them. We know Jimmie. We know Scott. Like in certain environments, they're not like that at all. But, you know, when it comes to work and you know, they could be there, but they've both accomplished such a tremendous amount. Like there's nothing quiet about their history and what they've made. So now you've got Jimmie. I mean, and by the way, what is it? I wrote it down. Your competition director? Is that your
No. We kept trying to come up with a title. Chip's like, what are we going to call you? And we still haven't.
Okay, so then what do you do? Like, what do you do then?
Whatever I can do to make the team more successful. And that's working with the drivers.
Does Chip actually listen to you?
Sometimes. Whether that's hiring new engineers.
I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, working with the drivers on performance at the track, working with the engineers, helping to hire engineers.
Oh.
So I think that guy is good.
Oh.
Why do we think, and that's great having Doug Ducart and Mike Hull as well as Chip, because those guys will sort of listen. But I think we need to go after this driver if and so that side of things, as well as just the day-to-day working with working with the guys, with Jimmie, he's full on. It's awesome. He's got the mindset of a 7-time champion with the inquisitive nature of a rookie. He's at Homestead today running a Formula 3 car. So
one of the funniest things I feel like I heard, this was 2000 and I don't remember what year it was, 16 maybe or something like that. It was before the chase. And so it was a big party in Chicago before the chase round, the last 10 races of the NASCAR season. And we're all going out. And at this point, so this is the first year Ricky made the chase. And so I think he was in it. Maybe it was just because I had a place in Chicago, but we were out with all of them, and we ended up back at my place in Chicago, all of us, and we're drinking and having fun. And Jeff says the funniest thing. He's like, in my career, I just didn't really have to try. And like, it just kind of happened. And he's like, Jimmie works so hard. And I was like, did you just say that? But it kind of goes in line with what you just said, which is the inquisitive nature of a rookie. Like some people just seek information and want to consume and are curious, and it's part of their experience, where then there's other people, I guess, like Jeff. And when I say Jeff, or anybody like Jeff Gordon and Jimmie Johnson, Jeff, like, obviously, you know, Jeff too, like, just fly by the seat of your pants, like, have fun, go for it, And I think
Jimmie
Scott's is like a student.
Yeah, Scott's more that sort of it just happens. He's chatting to you 1 minute, or he's the thing at the track that always amazes me about Scott is, and this is what I couldn't do, and this is why I couldn't have kids when I was driving. Call it 5 years ago, he's got Poppy here, Tilly here, and they're climbing all over him. He's like, right, girls, gives them a kiss, gotta go, gets in the car. And if that's me, I'm in the bus an hour before, mentally preparing and clearing my brain and all this stuff. And I get that Jimmie's sort of that work ethic. And as I got older, I realized I had to work hard. And there was times I probably might have been a little bit lazy in the earlier years.
So how do you think he's going to do? An IndyCar is a beast. Let's just talk for a second, because you and I can both speak the language of what's a NASCAR, what's a Cup car like, what's a stock car like, and what's an IndyCar like. So from your experience, what is he about to step into, knowing, like, telling us a little bit about what they feel like, and then how the hell is he going to do this?
His biggest thing is going to be that there's a half a second between first and last.
Yeah.
If you're a half a second off your last, that's going to be difficult. He's got 2 more test days in IndyCar before the first race in St. Pete. He's never driven on a street circuit.
Where is he testing at?
got a test at Sebring, good old Sebring.
Short.
And another one at Laguna. We've done 2 days so far with him, Barber and Laguna.
Oh,
2 tracks with no runoff. And that was his,
so fast.
Right? And that's his introduction to IndyCar. So physically, he's got no problem. He did 150 laps at Laguna. No problem. I mean,
and by the way, stock cars are a lot physically easier to drive than an IndyCar. A lot. Absolutely.
But this guy's just a machine. He just loves working out, which I wasn't that much of a big fan. I did it so, I didn't want to be tired during the race. But he, he's a different level. He's in that sort of Dixon and Tony, I like to work out thing, which I never got. I do it now.
I'm over there with them. I love
it.
I love working out.
Well, I see that on your Instagram and stuff. I just work out so I don't have to buy, jeans with a bigger waist. Yeah, exactly.
You said the half a second, and I get that, but what is it about that half a second that's going to be hard?
Well, and this is something him and I have talked about. We're sitting, I think, at Laguna. It was one of those comments that Jeff made. He went, I can kind of figure out why you sucked so badly now in a cup car.
Sometimes honesty just comes in a dagger, and you're like, oh, okay. So what was it?
It's the way, all the speed that I had, especially on a street road course, came from entry to apex, running that speed and using the downforce, bleeding off the brakes, running in. That's the area Jimmie's been struggling with so far, because he's always thinking about getting to the throttle first. And the way he shapes the corner and all those things, which is exactly what you don't want to do in an IndyCar. What I did, you don't want to do in a cup car. So we're comparing notes. And I think that's been helpful to him, is that I can relate to driving, a stock car. And, no matter how badly I did it, I can relate to what he's going to have to do.
The entry is so much different in a stock car versus an Indy car. The arc of an Indy car versus the shallow entry of a stock car, because you want to load it up slowly. Like, they're just very different.
Yeah, so it's been interesting, and that's going to be that whole season. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we've got obviously Scott, Marcus Ericsson, and Alex Palou, the young Spanish kid who's so polite. But he's badass. He's so quick.
He's a kid, right?
He's a kid. How old is he? 21? I don't know. I mean,
of course he's polite, because we're all ancient compared to him.
He hasn't called me sir yet, but we're,
Well, that comes in the NASCAR world. You're going to hear that. Maybe Jimmie will drop that every now and again. Yes, sir.
His spotter does. Earl. Big Earl.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. So how do you think he's going to do? I mean, to me, when I hear a half a second, what I'm hearing is that you're going to have to get that good. You're just going to have to get that good, and that, it's to even get within that half a second is going to be a lot. To learn to trust the car can do as much as it can do is a feat. Because they are extreme. When I jumped back in the IndyCar for the 500 a couple of years ago, when I did it and I took off out of the pits, I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is, and then the steering was so heavy and I was like, I can't freaking turn the wheel. And I was like, oh my God, these things have so much more power. And I was like, I forgot how tight the belts have to be. I truly forgot how tight the belts had to be.
Do you remember that scene in Star Wars when the Millennium Falcon goes to hyperdrive?
No.
Really deeply. Come on.
I haven't seen Star Wars. It's so bad. I should have, because I'm super into space and,
You watch Star Wars. It's awesome. But there's this scene where it just goes, and everything just comes at you at warp factor speed. And that's driving an IndyCar.
Did he ever mention anything about the acceleration?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Acceleration, the speed of the processing information that he's had to do. He's going to be fine. This guy's got, it's an easy thing to say this, for a 7-time champion, he's got so much talent, so much work ethic, but there's going to be difficult days too, because he doesn't know how to gain time at the moment, doesn't understand the intricacies of how a tire goes off throughout the run. How does the balance change? It's all the little details that make the difference between, winning and finishing P10. So, But it's a 2-year project, and he will surprise a few people, and I'm looking forward to that.
How close has he gotten lap time wise?
Well, again, we've done 2 days testing with him, so
I
think it was
looking for the
second and a half. I think it was a second and a half around Laguna, but he got in the F3 car, and he was about that to start off, and by the end of the day, he was as quick as anybody.
Really?
What? Yeah, his engineer Eric said. He said by the end of the day, all the other teams had come out to the pit wall with the stopwatches. I took that as a good sign.
Why is he doing it? Did he tell you that? Why is he doing it? Why is he?
Oh, this guy, he loves a challenge. It's just
same thing as you. You guys speak the same language.
Yeah, exactly. It's apart from he challenges himself by riding bicycles up mountains and stuff. And
come on, you rode bikes a little for a while.
Yeah, I still do a bit, but I'm sort of, again, it's just vanity now to stop getting fat. It's got a basket on the front.
That's cute. You're going down to the market for a baguette.
Precisely. Yeah.
So then what's the, you talked about kind of, there being a difference to being retired and sometimes more stresses. So, but what's the best part? Because you were forced to retire and you didn't want to.
No.
Right?
No, I didn't want to retire. I had all these plans to go race at Le Mans with Porsche, and then when it happened, I wasn't sort of. I remember lying in bed. I was going to say not long after, but probably a month after, when I can start to remember things, and I wasn't sort of woe is me. I was thinking, I can go down that road, but I'm not going to. Think of all the things I got to do, all the races I won that I never thought I got to win. And I was just happy to be alive. I mean, at that point, I was like, wow, I can go live the rest of my life. I might limp a bit and forget stuff, but I'm alive. So I didn't miss any of it. And to be honest, I don't miss the high pressure of racing an IndyCar. Like if they said to me, you can go do it tomorrow, I wouldn't do it. But racing, I get to race old cars at Goodwood and some really leery stuff. And it's that floats my boat, but I go as fast as I want to go.
If you could get back into a car at any car at all, any race, and it'd be like 2012, let's say. That's your sort of sharpness. Which one would you do?
Which car? Which track?
Yeah.
I've got a picture of it here. Oh. It's my 98 Surfers Paradise winning car, which I have in Scotland. That to me was a perfect thing of massive horsepower, sticky tires. It was a fun time in life as well. It was before Greg had died, and we were kids. That was fun. So that car probably Road America. That thing hauled the mail around Road America. I mean, it was so quick. So probably that car. I'm partial to my 2010 winner round Indy. That was the most dominant car I've ever had of any race I've done. So I'd like a wee spin in that one again. Chip's got that, I think.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh.
Come on.
I don't care. I'm not into race. I'm not into cars. I know that sounds like I've had a hard time admitting that because it sounds like I cheated the system. But what I loved about racing wasn't the cars and sort of like it was the challenge. It was setting a goal and achieving it. It was the journey. It was sort of like I love the attention to detail, the focus on perfecting the race. And maybe you can relate to that because you're quite the perfectionist, but like just like nailing everything and the feeling of like threading the needle and just doing it, qualifying and like letting that, and it flowed so well. And you you nailed it. You like floated it through the whole thing. And you're just like, God, I I killed it. And
Right.
that feeling's amazing. And so I loved that. I loved setting a goal and achieving it. But like racing itself, I can sort of achieve some of these aspects about racing in other ways. But if I'm going to give an answer, if I could go, well, if I could do any race, any car, I mean, I'd probably go back to that first Indy 500 because it was so good. The car was so good. I mean, we trimmed to make it more balanced. Like it was so good. And I was so young with such immaturity. And I, would have been, I wish I could have my talent at the end then.
I know what you mean.
But then on the same level, ignorance is bliss. And so I think there was certain aspects that because I was so new to it that I didn't think about, including the charge of the Indy 500, the emotional charge, right? Because it's like, actually, as time goes by, it almost starts feeling you're more nervous in a way because you can just like, you appreciate, respect, and honor the gravity of the race and the situation and what it does for your career, what it can do. And so it's like, I also didn't have that sort of fear charge of it not going well because I was so new.
That makes a lot of sense to me. The Indy 500 is the only thing I've done in my life. The more I've done it, the more it meant to me. Most things you become more sort of used to, not bored with, that's the wrong thing, but you become almost a bit numb to them. Yeah. Even if it's jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah.
You're like, I've done it 5 times. Indy, I slept less and less every year. I focused harder, I worked harder. But that to me, especially now, and you'll get to experience it now doing the TV stuff now, the pre-race, when they sing Back Home Again, Indiana, all that stuff that we couldn't allow ourselves to enjoy as drivers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get goosebumps thinking about that. That to me, I love that place and I love that event. It's so special.
Yeah. What have you, is there anything now after racing's over with that you have realized about yourself or like a hobby you've taken up or something like that you're like, wow, I had no idea.
I'm so predictable. No, I mean, my car, it's all about cars. Old cars, street cars, racing cars, books on cars, all these magazines on cars. So that it's just such a big part of my life. To me, my hobby is, I get to do all these fun things around the world, different jobs. I'm getting to work with Gordon Murray, who did the McLaren F1. He's doing a new car, so I'm working with him on his new car, which is it's like every day's going to school with this guy.
Like designing?
No, I'm sort of helping develop and all these different parts of this journey. It's so much fun. So I get to do that, and that to me feels like a hobby.
What has been your greatest lesson through all of your experiences? Because there have been so many ups and downs. I mean, you've really lived quite the roller coaster with injuries, deaths, accomplishments, relationships, children. Like, what has been the thing that you would say that has been your greatest lesson so far? That's put you in the place of being so happy now?
I don't think it's one lesson. It's not one thing that changed. It's a lifetime of experience. And the people I've been exposed to, whether that was people I worked with, whether that was being married to Ashley, whether, all of these great people I've been exposed to and how they shaped, my parents before that. And from every person and every experience I've had, good and bad, I think I've learned something. And I think that and I think age gives you some perspective as well because of those experiences.
Well, then let me ask this in another way then. What is an experience that was so horrible that you can look back now and say, I know that I wasn't in a good place about it then, but I look back now and I'm so glad that happened to me?
it's not, I wouldn't say horrible experience, but the NASCAR experience, I was always, from the moment I left, I was always happy that I'd done it. The crashes, the injuries, all that stuff, I really didn't and don't. Those weren't fun. You were along on the same ride, losing friends. That's hard to sit here with Sophia, and there's a picture of Greg just over there, and sort of talk about our Uncle Greg, and he was Daddy's friend and all that sort of stuff. That's quite tough.
Value life, live it to the fullest.
Exactly.
Say yes.
I have a question for you, and this is something you talked about, being a perfectionist. And our Dan was the ultimate perfectionist, right? I mean, his perfect shoes and his,
you
his
have
house.
to tell the story about what you did to him in, I think it was Japan. You have to just tell that story for his level of, because he was like a germaphobish clean freak too.
He was until him and Susie had the boys. Right,
but this happened before it.
Yeah.
What did you and the boys do to him?
Okay, so 2004, we go to Japan and we stayed in that hotel. They would always give us the team. I don't know if you knew this, but the teams always end up with the hotel rooms all in a line.
Oh,
so you'd end up next.
Okay.
Yes. So you didn't want to be next to Tony because he snored really badly. You could hear him through the wall. Anyway, we decided Herta was always the instigator, and Brian's like, what are we going to do? Oh, I know. Dan's gone to the Honda Museum. Let's go in his room and mess it up. Okay. So Tony goes downstairs. He's like, hello, I'm Dan Weldon. Going to have my key, please. There's a key up in the room. We go in. We took one of every shoe, and Dan traveled with, 20 pairs of shoes. One of every shoe. We took the TV away. We took all his hair care and skin products, and we poured them in the bathtub. We also messed up the bathroom a little in another way, but I'm not going to go into that. And we turned the heat up full. I guess, is it dry docking? Is that what they call it?
Sure.
We did that, and then we turned the heat up full. We closed the door, and we sat in the next room. And we're like, oh, here he comes. And so Dan comes up, Mr. OCD, everything's perfect. All the everything's laid out in bed perfectly and in the closet and lined up, and you hear him opens the door. He's like, mother.
Yeah.
And he went apoplectic. He got one of the bosses. He's like, you make these guys do this, right? Well, we'd already sent the shoes. The shoes had all disappeared. I think one of each had gone back to the US. He was so mad. He got the last lap because he won his first race that weekend, but he was beyond.
Anyway, so I love that. That's so funny. You guys played, because you guys became the tricksters, and I always got to ask, like, what did they do to you? Did they like haze you in any way? I'm like, I'm not sure they knew what to do with me.
No, we were too scared.
Of me, or doing the wrong thing? Because I'm a scary person.
The worst one I did was I hacksawed Tony's bike in half.
Yeah, that's pretty mean, because it was probably like a $7,000 bike or something.
It was a lot of money. Yeah, he was live on TV, and I stood behind the camera with a hacksaw. While he was on the show. It was brilliant.
That's amazing.
Didn't
All
speak
right,
to me.
a perfectionistic question.
Perfectionist. So Dan was the ultimate perfectionist. You said about being a perfectionist. Have you found that has both positively and negatively bled into your life, your everyday life?
Yeah, of course. Any extreme of anything is going to have a negative effect. There are some aspects of a personality that, if I were to choose, I'd be like, well, I'm glad I got that one in extreme versus the other side of the extreme. And so with being a perfectionist, I would say that has more benefits than being a slob and not
Mm-hmm.
caring. But it can also be a waste of energy because it doesn't matter, right? So it's a matter of sort of, and anytime you're trying to break a pattern or addiction of something, it is that hard. It is if you are addicted. And so you have to train yourself to stop caring about little things, and it's always going to be uncomfortable. And then as you do it more and more, then you come more into balance, and then it doesn't have to be your way and a certain way. Yeah. So, yeah, I see it show up, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one more question.
Yeah.
So when we were teammates, when we were racing together and stuff, were you always sort of this deep thinking, or is this a new thing? Is this replaced? Because you're pretty deep now. You really think about things, which is phenomenal. But is this a new phenomenon?
No, I've been doing a lot of talking about this aspect of myself, and actually within the last 24 hours. And I used to do a lot where it would be mental and outside of me, and the journey is inside of me now. And so I put a lot of effort into the outside, and I got a lot as a result. But it can't take me all the way to where I want to go or where I could go by continuing with the external. The journey has to go inward, and that is a expansive space of potential and information versus trying to learn it here in this linear world. This is not so linear. This is vertical. That's horizontal. That's linear. And so, yeah, I remember when I was a young kid, like I would go to the bookstore once I could drive, and I would always go to the self-help section, and I was pulling books that were self-help, and I didn't read a lot of books. And I know you love to read because they were heavy. Like I remember reading one when I was a kid that was about like peeling away an onion, someone that went into into solitude with no one, not speaking to anyone. And I don't remember a ton about the book other than that. And that the analogy that kept getting used in this book was peeling away the layers to getting to the core of who they were. And like, that's the kind of stuff I was reading. I mean, I was getting like astrology and psychic readings when I was a teenager because I was curious. I mean,
I didn't know any of this.
Now I speak to guides and Akashic readers on a regular basis. Like I'm so curious. And, I'm so curious about the quantum, the unknown, the unseen. And guess what I'm realizing is that the journey is quite inward. It's not something intellectual. It's something felt. And I think maybe that's the magic of kids too, in a way. Like it's not something that you can go, it's a feeling. It's probably indescribable almost.
Yeah. The
love, the connection, the care. And so, yeah, I've always been like this though. I just didn't get to. And so in the end, actually what happened was I started really feeding into this sort of aspect of myself more. Like 2000, I suppose it started in like 14 or 15 a lot. And then from that point on, once 17 came, and my main sponsor left at the beginning of the year, which was a weird scenario that I had never been faced with. This idea of being done came about, and I still had that year and another year on my contract, and I had no intentions of retiring. And even after that, I hadn't even had thoughts of it. And so, I kind of started falling out of resonance with my environment. And you start recognizing how kind of unhappy a lot of people are. And then you start recognizing the dynamic energetically that it took to be successful. And a lot of times you had to be a pretty big asshole. And, that selfishness and everything that was, and so I had that, right. I've lived that. But it became something that wasn't as embodied in me anymore. And I was sort of shifting. And so I just kind of fell out of resonance. And so it's always been in me. It's just, it was just about the time, right? I had to go through my own phases, which is why, maybe Sophia is going to be a race car driver, and, maybe she'll be all in like dad was, and like anyone who's great at something, and then she'll learn her own way. But sometimes it's kind of like you going to NASCAR. It's like, you might have seen it as a sidestep, but I think it had a lot to do with your continued and expanding, records and wins. I think it was part of it. So it might have seemed like a sidetrack, but it's all part of the journey. It's actually how you get to the greatest result. So sometimes you have to be out of balance to learn a lesson to get to where you need to go. Deep, deep, deep.
Very deep.
Deep. Thank you, Dario.
DP, thank you. That was fun.
That was fun. You're the best.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.